Hang on, gang. There we go. All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's call. It is Friday, December 21st of 2018. If you're online, you can see my beautiful Christmas tree behind me and the lovely Laura just off stage here, ready to go for our final sales training call of the year. There will be no calls until after January 3rd. So nothing next week. I hope that all of you get this message that I want you to go do what I'm going to do, and that's enjoy your family, your friends, whomever you like to rest and relax with. Go celebrate with all those folks, because that's important to me, that you have a life here. Really important, right? Okay, so let's get into this call here today. I have had a lot of conversations this week with the mastermind group all about, what are the orders of implementation of things, right? What am I supposed to do? And then I just had a good call with John Parasek, one of our members, and we were just really talking about the question about what's this DPPO 20 thing that you used to talk about? And I was glad he brought it up, because in the DPPO 20 formula, you're always in this battle between working in your business to actually make that revenue happen and working on it so that strategically you're leveraged so things happen quicker and faster for you. So there's that balance. And the dream is someday you'll work only on it. You won't have to work in it, meaning you won't have to do the calls. You won't have to do the presentations. You're really just sort of the CEO or the guiding hand. But to get there, you got to get some sales done, right? We know that. That's absolutely critical. GCI is critical. So there are very particular activities that lead to the creation of GCI, and they're just good habits. And number one is you're not going to sell any property unless you're building a database of prospect names, okay? So the D back in the day was that. It was the concept of building that database, being cognizant every day that there's somewhere where you're putting these names in and they're prospects. And a prospect is a contact that you've actually had conversation with. You've made some sort of an offer to. They've been accepting of that offer, and that offer is definitely about access to properties for sale through MLS. I highly recommend. You could use your IDX, but everybody has one of those, and everybody has access to an app. So I try to upgrade that to be directly into the MLS with you. And I know you might not think that that's much different, or that maybe even we're syndicating it through software, through MLS when it's us. Don't think about all that. It's the act of saying, I will do this for you personally, that's most important. And that creates a database of people that are now accepting of that offer. And that's a good thing for you, right? Because you have some level of control over the beginning of a potential relationship. I'm not going to call it a relationship. I will call it a potential relationship. From there, it's important to understand that that database has been built, and you ain't getting anywhere, like we were talking to Laura about, without phone calls. You have to talk to people. And so ultimately, emails and texts, they're great and they support something. But before you can get in the field with a seller or buyer, you have to have a series of phone calls that are building that relationship. And in those phone calls, that's the kind of stuff we train here on Fridays. There has to be insightful commentary from you to them regarding the properties that they're getting and how the market changes, ups and downs are affecting them when they go to buy and sell down the line, hopefully with you. So D, P, phone calls. Now, ultimately, back in the day, there was a firmer moment in time, I think, where there was a very clear, like, hey, let's get this lead, let's make a phone call, book a presentation, right? So there was this chop, chop, chop. So when I first wrote this DPPO 20 thing, that's what I was thinking was the order of things. I will argue now that all the way out from where you really are producing that database conversation, meaning marketing, like one of the ways to build the prospects is marketing. Your content marketing is actually presenting to them. And if you're giving away, right away, so that by the time you've D and created that database, they know a little bit of that content. P, they're getting drips to support those phone calls so that when the real presentation time comes, you might be meeting that buyer in the field for the first time, but you're not foreign to them. there's not that necessary moment. We gotta sit down and I've got to explain the strategy to them. It has to be, by the way, if all of you online see me looking this way, that's because I'm talking to Laura, because this is where we work on our business too. So that whole moment of presenting to them through that process takes pressure off of that second P of presentation. That we don't have that huge need and desire to have to really sit down. In fact, if we've booked some showings, what you and I talked about the other day was being able to get the full-blown video presentation out to somebody, even if they say tomorrow, right? Even if they don't watch it. But it's just that constant giving of presentation, so the heat is off that moment a little bit. And then ultimately, got to be in the field to write offers. Right? You want to affect the outcome of one of your listings, go open house it yourself. Aggressively get that feedback, get those price reductions, whatever it takes. Convince somebody, to write that offer they're afraid to. That's an activity that leads, it's a money-making activity. Look, I'm not afraid to talk about money-making. I talk a lot about giving. But I get it. Got to make some money. So if you're not writing offers, you're not making money. There's no GCI. And when there's no GCI, there's no me, there's no you, there's no conversation, right? There's nothing to work on. So let me go back and reiterate. When you look at that and you say, okay, those are the money-making activities. So you want to work on developing a marketing plan that builds out that database, okay? And if you were to spend 5 hours a week, just 5 hours a week, thinking about where am I going to get conversations started that will lead to an offer, that will lead to a prospect who I can put in my database and begin, right? So I have to think about 5 hours of intentionality. And what I was talking about with John Parasak was, where do you block that time out on your calendar? And I don't care what calendar you use, okay? But you have to own that time where for an hour a day, 5 days a week, watch what I'm doing. I'm going to back you into a corner here. Follow me, right? 5 hours a week. Now I have intentionality to build prospects in my database. The next is phone calls. All I have to do is block out 5 hours worth of phone calls. And once this gets going, clearly you understand that leads and prospects are the primary function of that P in DPPO 20, because you're converting them to clients. And that happens through a formal presentation in the field. So clients, so really the D is everybody, all contacts, all prospects.
Does that formula only pertain to like the, I guess, beginning process of maturing people?
That's good question.
And like, does the phone calls, does that include to your actual clients?
Great question. Let me keep going. You hear what she said? Okay. Well, you can't because you're on mute. So the bottom line is, she's asking me, who's in here? And this has become a little bit more complicated in the digital age. That's why I said what I said before. In the olden days, right? Build the database of prospects and leads. Now I'm more cautious about that advice. Now I'd much rather say, build a database of prospects. I don't really care out there in the ecosphere, in the wild, how you do that. But go have conversations wherever you can. Go do marketing, whatever you can afford to be effective, to get an opportunity to make an offer of upgrade of information of what they want, which is access to MLS properties. And once they accept that initial offer, that's where you have a real viable candidate called a prospect in your database. So I even kind of kick the leads off this DPPO formula, but clearly they're inherently part of the discussion. It's just, I want them to be intentional about saying, if I didn't do activities to create a prospect, that's kind of the everything catch-all for marketing. It's inherent in the D, but I want it to be sacred to say, if you didn't put a prospect in your database this week, why not? Right? I could call it MDPPO, because then I'd go to marketing that led to prospects, that led to prospect follow-up, that leads to presentation to conversion to client, and get that client to write offer. So I could add an M, right? I could add an M. And if I did, I'm still only up to 25. So if I go MDPPO, I'll just add 5 more hours. 5 hours to marketing to get leads that you can talk to in some way, that will become prospects who go into your database, that will receive phone follow-up calls, who will then allow you to be in the field presenting your professionalism, who then will allow you to write offers for them or negotiate the seller offers, right? So it's an awareness that I think most agents don't bring to this business. Now, why the 20? And now, because you asked that, I add the other one, 5. Why the 25? Oh my gosh, think about this. If everybody were to quit being an independent contractor and go back to work for a corporation, how many hours do you have to work?
At least 40.
At least 40. Now take an hour off for lunch because they give it to you. You are supposed to be physically working 35 hours a week, okay? Take off 10 easy for procrastination. Most corporations are probably getting 25 hours worth of work. And what did I just say? So the reason for this concept of discipline, DPPO 20, now we'll go MDPPO 25. Why is that so critical? Because if you come in and you spend 25 serious hours, this is discipline. This is an accountability program. That's why you can pull it out of all the learning that we do and say, okay, here's the executable action plan. And if you don't do this, or you don't have the time, let's say somebody says, I don't even have 40 hours, cut down to 25. Great, cut it in half. Spend half the time doing each of the activities. I only have a quarter, whatever. You can break it down to the most minimal amount of time. And if there is an intentional, think about this. What if there's an intentional 5 hours a week to get started as an agent?
That's a lot.
A ton.
And
What did you just say?
That's a lot.
Hear what she said, everybody? It's a lot.
Well,
Okay.
I think the best part.
Let me make these guys. Hey guys, all hearing this okay, right? You guys hearing this okay? Check. I know I got a few people here. Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, stay with me. Go.
I think what I like most about the formula specifically is because it forces you to segment specific time to each major part of building your business.
Right.
It's almost like a time management, which
Not almost like, it's perfectly intended.
Yeah.
Do you have that special report there? I see it sitting there.
Yeah.
So the special report I wrote a while back, and John Parasak, thank you for really really doing this correctly with me today and asking me to bring this back up. So for those of you that are online, there's a secret report, which is one of the first things that I ever wrote, which was really this kind of concept of DPPO 20. But I have messed with it over the years. A lot of you that coached with me way back when at another company recognized this, but this was, and I'll edit this too. Remind me to just add the marketing thing, and I'll do a quick edit of this because I do think the differentiation between marketing to create a prospect, right? Really, somewhere in there, it needs an edit. But this was a very simple formula that was only a few pages long. This free report is super short because it's intended to be that way. To say, if you want a time management formula, okay, I'm going to paint you into a corner. I'm going to give you 20 hours. And if we make a differentiation for all that marketing stuff, I'll give you 5 intentional, which could mean a lot of things in this day and age, right? You and I both know that we got a referral from a fellow agent, and I'll guarantee you, I'll ask Wallace, but I'll guarantee you that at some point in time, it's because we're very, very much, or I'm very much on social, and she's a friend of mine socially. I know her physically from the summers, but to be there, to be top of mind, that, oh, these guys are really working hard at this, and here's what they do. We're there.
Yeah.
So that's an intentional marketing piece. So when people are strategic about this and they're intentionally there on a regular basis, well, gee, if that was all you did, put in an hour a day going on social, posting things, doing whatever it is, maybe it's curating the information, sharing it, doing a video. You could easily gobble up that whole intentional piece, right?
Sure.
Calling past, cut it in half, call past clients. You could easily gobble up an hour, right? And you don't need that many things that work. Checking in with your past clients, social posting, that would gobble up 5 hours a week of intentionality easily. So the best time to do your marketing is in the morning.
I think it's just a matter of coming up with a system.
Yeah.
And then like living by it and blocking it out.
You have to block the time. Time management is about blocking the time. And when you lose it and recurring, like in any kind of calendar you all use as salespeople, and again, this is a sales discussion, okay? Because these are the things that lead to the sale. If you don't do these things intentionally, there's no sale. Like, or there is, but it's super random. It's super lucky.
Intentional business is so much more rewarding, I think.
Yeah, let me put this on the other side.
Yeah, I'm always over
Yeah,
there.
it's okay. Okay. Just want you guys to be able to hear what she's saying. All right, any comments on this so far? John Parasek, are you with me? Did you make it? I just talked to him 20 minutes ago. I don't know if he made it, but all right. Small group today. Oh, you there? You there? You there? You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, cool.
I just had you on mute.
All right, awesome. So, John, did that help clarify it a little bit more? And I'm ready to leap off from there to whatever it is, because what you asked me for was, I don't know if you said it exactly like this, but was to help you be more intentional in 2019 about going in your case, you have these calls booked for you. So your P exists in Infusionsoft. That's why we love Infusionsoft, because of that one particular thing. You know who to call today. So it's very easy for you to block time to make those phone calls and get them done, because it's all teed up for you. So your leverage is more than all of theirs, to the extent that we have been building, and you can just go in and knock out, buzzer goes off, you've done your hour like that, right? So, and I don't know if that's how you work, or is it?
Probably not.
Okay, and that's fair. And I'm looking
Yeah.
for, in as much as you're efficient, I think that's a good awakening, which we talked about yesterday.
Ironically, I my thing for 2019 is about scheduling. I just started using Google Calendar, and that's been huge. I find it's helped organize me a lot.
Yeah.
And makes me even more intentional about my day.
Yeah, cool. John, you want to go into this with us?
No, I agree. I need to establish a better process, because I do make my calls, but I don't make them as consistently as I'd like. And setting aside the time is important. And not getting lost into database tasks when actually doing follow-up calls and this kind of thing.
And John, I think you have to look at it and be, excited about it to the extent that you see it as part of an overall process that leads to success, right? So I guess the thing that I would probably ask of Laura is, as tough as long-term follow-up and database segmentation and all that, as tough as that job really is, what keeps you motivated? Like, how? Are you micro into it, or it's because you can see the macro and how it evolves? What is it? And if it's the check, say that it's the check.
Well, that was my first reaction.
Yeah. Well, give us the first reaction.
Yeah, it's money.
Okay.
But since we've kind of shifted our business and it's become so much more about building relationships, I have such a stronger relationships with all of our clients and prospects too. So it's kind of turned the job more enjoyable. I mean, of course, there's still a huge chunk of them that I'm talking to myself to.
Yeah.
That I'm used to.
Yeah.
But
is that the thing that you think demoralizes most people from wanting to do their 5 hours worth of calls? If we're going to just stick with like 5 hours, like it's an hour a day for a 9 to 5 job. I don't care if you take Fridays off and you work Saturdays. That's my point. My point is trying to say, in any corporate situation, your expectation is 40 hours. So if you want to become an independent contractor and replace your job, it requires the same discipline. Only the worst part is you're your own boss.
Yeah.
So very difficult to fire yourself. So the whole idea of accountability here is that you have to find some way to find discipline.
For sure.
Now, if you don't know what to do and you don't know how to organize it, I understand why most people are just completely discombobulated, right? So when it comes to differentiating, how would you say today's MDPPO 25 is is changed the way that you work? Or how has the whole digital age changed the way you work through that stuff? And again, I know I'm part of that. I know I step in, mostly at that very critical part of presentation to offer, right? I still do the majority of that piece of it there. But how has the rest changed for you? Not that you've replaced me in a couple deals, but the other stuff. Because this is advice for all of them. How do we do what we do? That's what I'm asking.
A ton of communication.
Yeah.
I'd have to say that's one thing that we're pretty good at.
With each other or with clients?
Both.
Okay.
It has to be both,
Yeah.
Especially with clients. But if we didn't have the communication on a consistent basis, I think our book of business would be a mess.
Yeah.
And we'd be tripping over each other and forgetting things. And I feel like we have it down to a science now.
You and I.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like when I set you up for something, you have your package. You don't even have to think, really.
Yeah.
That's my interpretation.
Oh, I agree.
I don't know if you feel the same way.
I don't. And John, I think that's a key point too there, is that as you hear us talk about assembly line like manufacturing, we take this very seriously. Like very seriously. We're more open to the critique of people, whether they're buyers, sellers, or agents, more so than ever. Sure, it hurts to get things wrong. Nobody likes to be wrong and get constructive criticism, but we listen big time. And we run right back to our assembly line like process and say, how did we miss that? What did we break? Okay. I'll give you a clear example right now. In the one break in communication between she and I
we did.
I had gone to a very, very clear presentation. I had my stuff. It was great. We were organized. We had all the right materials. I was right on time, etc. And then from that conversation, there came another conversation. I ought to have you look at a project I'm doing with my brother. So I said to Laura, hey, listen, I want to go out and see their property. It's currently listed with another agency, but it's coming to an expiration. They've asked me to come out and see it. So I didn't communicate that that's a formal presentation. And so I went out with this red manila. Well, is it red manila? No, you can't do that. A red folder, right?
Yeah.
So a red folder with just the comps in it, and we didn't come prepared with all of our best stuff. And I think that's an example, John, of where we really broke our formula.
Yeah.
And every time we do, good news is the website was ready to back up what it was. It was a good presentation, but I essentially went out there even without a business card because they're usually stuffed in the thing, right? So it was really a discombobulation of Rain Man's system, and I was back to muscle.
Yeah.
And the minute you go back there, you make yourself vulnerable, because my competition, the manager was, well, they give me all these fancy materials and that matters to me. Yep, you're right. I'm going to send you all those fancy materials that we use and put that together with the digital stuff that we showed you. So we did that. And we're having a conversation after this. So it's crazy how important the details are. See, everybody's looking for some kind of magic pill. By the way, stop moving around to agents who are listening to this from one brokerage to the next brokerage every 5 minutes as if that's going to solve your problem. Holy moly, is that a pandemic in this industry, right? It's just mind-boggling. Instead, put your assembly line together in the stupid, simplest way that says, when I walk through a relationship from the very first time I get a call from somebody I know or don't know, what does it look like? Do I put them in a database where I continue to give them content that they want and need? Do I follow up with a frequency of insightful phone calls that adds value to that situation? Do I eventually ask for the call to action to be presenting myself professionally in the heat of the moment, meaning can we see properties? Can we give a presentation? Do I do the activities that lead to writing of offers? In a lot of cases on Cape Cod, the toughest conversation we have is price reductions. It is brutally difficult to find the right price here, right? So am I systematically having those conversations based on feedback? So all of that is a lot. So I think if you don't see the macro, what am I doing intentionally 5 hours a week to try to get people that I can converse with? Get them into a database, follow up with phone calls and content, get in the field to present the properties and myself professionally and write offers. Everything else is a moot point until you have that organized.
Yeah.
Now,
you gotta have that system down,
right.
expectations defined. I think one of the reasons why we're like Rain Man, because we know we have it all down to a science, like you're explaining. And that, I think, puts you at ease, knowing that you have the system in place. At least I think that's why it works for us.
John, thoughts about that? Like, if you listen to us talk, all of you, and today we're talking a little bit more about the sales machine, because it's the end of the year and it's important you take inventory to question your sales machine. What does it look like? I'm a huge fan, as you all probably know, if you know me well, of Henry Ford's whole process. Everybody was making a car back then. Psst, everybody's a realtor today, right? Like, what's the difference? Yeah. Every realtor's, on average, making 3 cars a year. Got it? Yeah. Crazy when you think about it. 3 sales a year. So what's the problem on average? The process. So if you're Henry Ford, like, you come into this and you look at the manufacturing of an automobile as a final sale, you look at it the same way and you say, well, it's not necessarily that you can't make a beautiful car. I'm not saying that there wasn't a guy down the street from Ford's shop in Dearborn, Michigan, that couldn't make a better car. But the process was, if he could make more cars and thereby find more efficiencies, and ultimately, even though he's selling 10x to one guy, he's actually producing now a better car. Think about that for a second. Are we giving, because we're so efficient with that sales machine, a better final outcome to somebody than somebody's doing 3 a year? I'll make the argument, absolutely yes.
I think also, even using that example, I don't think most people understand what they're actually manufacturing. Yeah. It's not a sale.
Okay, tell me why that evolution has happened for you. What that means, because that's not who you were.
No.
Right?
Not
because
at all.
You said at the beginning of this call, and it's sort of like the white elephant in the room. Money's important to you all, or you're not here today. Right? Okay. Of course. All right. So let's not be duh. Let's have that moment. We have families to feed. Unless you're independently wealthy and you're doing this for a hobby, you need to make money. However, there's a choice on how you do that. I think one is transactional, a transactional mindset, and the other is, what would you call it?
Relationship.
Okay, relationship mindset. Okay, let's just use that word. Transactional versus relationship. I'm not saying that they don't meld together. Yeah. Of course, they're both parts of the business, but there's a mindset that shifts. So what would you, to go further, where you going to go with that? Where are we going?
Well, I think, your average Joe and Jane agent does 3 deals a year, is thinking on a transactional level. Like, that's just what they think that they're doing within the business of real estate, but looking at it in a completely different way, which has happened for us over the last, a year or two, it really hits home that I don't sell houses. I build relationships, and it's really powerful.
Talk about the outcomes. So we've got these 25 hours that we've painted everybody here at the end of the year into a corner. Let me just talk about this again. If you're just joining us online or somewhere else, way back when, it's definitely over 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I was trying to find out some practical advice while people were busy working on it. And Dean Miller was, definitely talking about this. Dean, I know you're on the call too. You were definitely talking about this basically this week. It's like, okay, if there's an order of things, what is it, right? So for you, the owner, Dean, there was material that you needed to be able to do this. And that's a big evolution for us as a coaching group, is to know what materials need to be developed. Like you got to have your buyer, seller, agent infographics and courses. You got to have those. That's the core reason why anybody would listen to you as being different. Okay. Really important, right? I think you then have to have some basic understanding of the fact that there's going to be those conversations that happen. Oh, hey guys. Hello. Sorry about that. So there's a basic understanding of that offer. Like, you're not going anywhere without an offer. You can go do all the lead generation you want, and you can do all the calling you want and all that. But if you don't know how to make the right offer to the right person at the right time, there's nobody coming onto the assembly line to manufacture a relationship with. And that totally circles around what they want. So you have to determine first, what does the buyer consumer, seller consumer, and agent, if you're hiring agents, agent consumer really want? I'm not saying what they need, because what they need is way deeper than they can even imagine.
I don't think we ever used to think about what they wanted.
Never.
It was all about what we wanted.
We just presume, well, because when you're transactional, there's the starting point difference, is that your mindset as transactional is, I've got to do 3 deals every month. So everybody becomes an opportunity to get a transaction, which is also crazy and dangerous, that everybody now starts to go into this dog's breakfast of volume.
Yes, we
right?
were there.
So you fall into that, it's a race to the bottom to get volume of names when you're transactional. And the money, which everybody says they want, is going backwards on average rapidly. And the litmus test for that is for everybody at the end of the year to just simply sit still and look in your marketplace and say, what is the average sale in the marketplace that I'm in? What's average? And if you want another number, median. Our median is a little bit lower, or a lot bit, right, than our average. I think we're 506 and then 420 something or so.
Yeah, I think.
But for years, transactional got us to what number?
Like
300, right?
Yeah.
Which is a stunning, staggering difference over the course of 365, over the course of the number of transactions that we so covet. So our very pursuit of being transactional salespeople is a race to the bottom because of the mindset.
Yes.
Totally bizarre and ironic, but that's exactly how we experience it. I'm not saying you all do, but we experience it that way. Now, it's really tough to shift, because once you become relationship driven and you want to affect more people positively, you definitely recognize the power and leverage in a listing. And you say, we can affect more people and help more people if we have more listings.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a balance. You know, we've talked about our shift maybe was too dramatic one way versus the next, but now you're producing relationships with the product, which allows you to bring more people in through open houses. You're helping co-brokes, you're helping buyers who come direct. It's a tremendous opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But in either case, once you start to bring them along that assembly line, you're also treating them differently. You're not pushing them. You're not rushing them. You're listening. I think that's the big difference. I don't think transactional agents listen as much as relational do, right? I think they both have the same opportunity, but being relational kind of relaxes you a little bit. It's more zen. And you see at a macro level really more so what's going on, which ironically allows you to work on it a lot easier.
Which makes you so much more effective on the phone.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's bring you all in here. Let me hear what your thoughts are here. I've got some of my folks in here that, Alan, good to see you here, buddy. Brian Grimm. I know Scotty's out there. Jonesy, Voltaire, you're up there, buddy. Parasec. Sonia, anybody want to weigh in on this? Dino, you were there too, and you were carrying this kind of thing yesterday, so if you're not in a noisy spot. Anybody want to pick up on this or ask questions? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Dean.
It's just funny how it seems like a lot of the tactics have been right, but the strategy was wrong for so long. The last week and a half have kind of been very eye-opening.
That's really, hold on, say that again. I want everybody to understand what you just said. Okay, just say it slowly. Those 2 words, tactical versus, go ahead, say it in your own words.
The tactics to what we've been doing haven't necessarily been wrong, and I think they're right. But the strategy behind it has been upside down.
Yeah.
It hasn't been clear enough. It hasn't been clear enough to really get the focus. You talked about the assembly line, and I said, yeah, it's great. The assembly line works, but we're letting too many of the wrong parts get onto that assembly line.
No doubt.
That was, in the conversation we talked about the trip to the museum and everything.
Yeah.
That's what really started percolating in my head was we're allowing so much garbage to get in the way. And yeah, the pieces go together, but we're building the Model T. We're not building the Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
And I think that's the strategic mistake that I know I've been making.
Yeah. Well, I thought you and I together yesterday had a very, and this is why I really appreciated you asking it on the helpline. We carried it over to the mastermind, and I think it's good for everybody to listen to this. This is a timely call because it's the end of the year. I really, really think what you said about the distinction that I made, that I don't know that you'd ever heard me say it like that or it hit you at the right moment, but I said, if I could have it back again, I would have never, ever given any coaching advice to ever allow leads so heavily into a database. And in our particular situation or context, we were talking about what I had built in Infusionsoft. Now, at that time, I certainly was disciplined with volume because I was the one that had experienced early on that was a problem. We looked at all that word distress. I'll talk about a race to the bottom. Whoo, man. You throw that word distress sale in front of your stuff and you don't actually live in that kind of a business model or world, you have made yourself one big old mistake, right? We just punted it 6 years ago. All those names, Dean, we just punted them. So when you start over like that and you understand that, we had a very slow trickle. We were only bringing in 18 to 25 leads in the beginning off of the buyer internet stuff. And that was 6 years ago when it was still a very viable opportunity, right? On a regular basis, right? We weren't fighting it like we would today. But knowing now the complete evolution, I would never, ever had ever counseled anyone that when they got to that concept of database to go out and get volumes. I would have said, like, what Lee Stillwell really helped me distinguish was that, and because he was the one pressing, because he just still likes volume. You're not going to argue with a guy who likes volume, but you can leave it out there on this other platform where you use different techniques. That's where Paul Cantu was like, oh, hell no, right? And I thought that was fair. I thought it was a fair argument on Paul's side but just the expression was Lee's willing to use human resources and other technology resources to pound away to create the prospects and then only allow them in. Well, you and I have only been allowing them in for quite some time now. So I think if you're relationship oriented, Dean, that's the key point right there. How many prospects How many prospects do we all really need to be wildly successful? And what a prospect is somebody that we know or don't know, that we have met from some marketing activity which runs the gamut of everything that's possible. How many people do we really need to have? And if you just don't know that simple offer of what they want, okay? Look, it looks like you came to my open house. It looks like we're sitting here at my kid's soccer game. It looks like you got referred by a friend of mine. And it sounds like you'd like to do something inside the next 12 months. Now, I know you're probably using these applications that are out there, but they're all syndicated and there's really nobody behind that. I'm here. I'm a realtor. I'm part of the source called Multiple Listing Service, which, by the way, is no time soon going to be usurped by a tech company, right? So let me open up a private door for you to be in there to get as much detail as you ever wanted about what properties you want, because you are the right market to which that message lands, because you said you're genuinely serious about doing something inside of 12 months. Right? You're laughing.
I'm laughing.
Come on, get it off your chest. Go ahead. She's laughing at me, Dean.
Do you remember when our offer was to give them proprietary info to Property Finder? And it was really like crap because the info access was horrible.
Yeah.
And it's like we would pride ourselves on having
priority, yeah,
like info. And it always just positioned us as the hero in the story and not the buyer or seller.
Ooh, that's beautiful. Did you catch that, Dean? I'll keep you in the hot seat with me. Did you catch that?
It's funny because as the conversation was going, and again, not to disparage the text generation of what we did,
right?
But all of those free reports that we gave out,
yeah,
were, hey, look at me, I'm fantastic, I'm spectacular. While it may have provided some insight, it was the interpretation of that information to guide the prospect into becoming the client. And it's funny because that whole system was built around the spotlight being on us.
Yeah, and And again, not to disparage transactional agents, and certainly my mentor, I would never do that. I think, though, it is an important distinction. And I think for the majority of agents, including today's top producers, lead generation is out of the bag in this business. I think for a long time it wasn't. I think for a long time you only had a lot of people understanding.
It was the key to survival and success.
But I think you had a lot of people always understanding relationships, because here's what I'll make this argument. Everybody understand this now. And if you're ever an agent trying to join me at the Griffin Realty Group, this is the number one thing we're training right off the bat. We want you to understand the story brand formula. We can't give you better guidance from the minute you meet us publicly here on two forums, YouTube, Facebook, wherever. You must hear the story. The story brand formula sets you up to be a relational or a relationship-oriented agent, not a transactional. Now, both things come together. We certainly want you all to do more and more transactions, but how you do it from a mindset standpoint matters. Now, you might challenge that and say, well, that's too soft for me. That's what, like all my top producers that come to me, I got problems. Yeah, no kidding, you think, right? Let's get off the steroids and stop doing business on steroids. Let's do it strategically and organically, right? So now, when you look at this, you come in and you say, all right, in the story brand, Hollywood 101, book 101, the hero enters the stage with the problem. Now, all of you listening to this, you're my hero. I'm the coaching guide with a plan. DPPO 20, MDPPO 25, the agent course. I got it. I'm there. You're my hero. But eventually, you have to listen to my guidance to get there. So I have to find that avatar who will allow me to first give them what they want. What do you want? What do you want to know each week? I want to know the script. I want to know what to say when I pick up the phone. I want to know what I'm on. No problem. Here's what I would have done in that case. And we do it week after week after week on sales training. However, when you entered the open house to give it in the first place, did you think like a guide? Are there a whole bunch of infographics for buyers and sellers? Courses? Are there other properties available from other agencies? I know, give away somebody else's. God forbid, should we help another agent, right? Sold properties that are insightful. If you think like a guide, everything changes. You'll never go to an open house the same. You won't go just with a sign-in sheet and feature sheet. Want to buy it? Want to buy it? Want to buy it? Want to buy it? How come? How come? Right? And again, I'm exaggerating the point to make the point that it's just too darn easy to get askew, and 1 degree off ends you up in this crazy place. Now, here's the key point, Dean. Here's the key point that we recognize, and we're really adamant about cleaning this list right now, is that when we finish that that offer's done and closed, let's presume that's a closed sale, right? Okay. When we're done with that, we are very, very, very micro-focused on, did we create a
Happy Griffin.
A happy Griffin. We've even given it its own, nomenclature, because it's very important to produce a happy Griffin for us. That's everything. And the time, I've always had compliments about Laura, our process, how we are. We're even getting them from co-brokes these days, because even then we were transactional with them.
Yeah.
And we had some critique with them. And they were like, well, there's so many people over here. Well, there's not really, but were we doing a good job of moving even the co-broke through that process? Right?
Which is huge.
Oh, go ahead, say more about that though, because I think they don't understand that we're trying to be authentic all the way. It's not just the buyer and seller; it's the other co-broke agent.
Yeah, I mean, because I've been a lot more heavily involved with the co-brokes, I've found that they need leadership too, and they don't have a process to it all. It's like, you get fly-by-night text messages when they're like anxiety ridden. Like, it's just crazy how they work and operate.
Yeah.
And I've always saying to myself now, don't let the tail wag the dog that you say, because I find, in the past with other agents and some really tough clients, I would be a shrinking violet.
Yeah.
And then keeping that concept in my mind or that picture in the forefront has really helped me be like, no, this is how it's done.
Okay, good. Now,
You know?
there's a key point there, because I think I brought this up in this process. As this process is done more and more correctly, I think we need to explain to everybody that Dean helps us get there in the beginning. Stop racing to the bottom with your marketing by being transactional and thinking that everybody is okay to bring in to do business with. And then worse, complain about them. Like, oh my gosh, this guy wants to buy a distress sale and he's driving me crazy. Well, why did you market to him in the first place? What are you doing there? Well, I need more transaction. Well, okay, hello, right? So I think it becomes very easy to get the smelling salt moment of running down that hole. But I think what's important is that once you begin to get, and not everybody's great to work with, because some people are crazy emotional, they make us emotional, and our job has been really to lean on the system to bring our emotions down, right? So we can bring them down to logic.
Yeah.
But as they go along, what I think is important for everybody here to understand is as they go along, and we're seeing the relationship, we're seeing them as the hero, we're seeing what they need at that moment, and we're delivering it as fast as possible. If they want feedback, they get feedback right there. If they want updates, they get updates right there. We don't wait, say, oh, we'll call you next week. We give it to them when they want it, which is okay because they're in that process. They're not letting, that tail is not wagging the dog, they're in there. And they're giving us trust. And we're demonstrating professional care and guidance by giving them what they want in that moment that aligns with this. And what's happening is we're developing trust. So in the moment you just expressed, where Dean, Laura she referenced being a shrinking violet because I was teaching her, you cannot be a shrinking violet. These people have asked for guidance, and their emotions more so are going to be the thing that's pushing back on you. So if you allow that person who you have relationship with, if you serve, there is a moment where you take. And what you take is control.
Yeah.
And you say, stop yelling at me. We did what we said we were going to do. I know you're upset. I know this offer's too low. I know that house is too high. I know that counter offer was no good. I know. But just calm down. This is part of the process. I know what you want. And I know you really want it, but we need to be strategic and we need to follow it. You can be that firm with somebody.
Well, I kind of have the same.
As the guy, you've also got to be willing to admit that you're the expert in the process. Sometimes the guy's just got to smack the hero around and say, shut up, sit down and listen.
Yeah, but only when you get to that relationship of trust. And that starts way back at your mindset that you're nothing more than a guide. And the only way that you get to be, the guide in the conversation, and I'm not saying this is a patronizing thing, by the way, all the way back at your marketing messages, all of you, right? I mean, I think of Voltaire and I think of all the social he's doing, right? I think of you and all the social you're doing, all what I'm doing. And we all have to ask ourselves, when we look at that content, is that content guidance? Does it, with or without getting the business, are we demonstrating to the world through that we are true, genuine guides? Or are we really just saying, look at me, look at me, look at me? Now, I do believe that there's an importance to success marketing. I do believe y'all need to tell the world, I'm successfully doing this. I'm listing, I'm selling, just listed, just sold. But also, now you go into guidance and you say, here's the market update for the neighborhood. Here's all the cocktail talk you want to know. Here's the average, it's up or down. Here's the square footage, it's up or down. Here's all the stuff you want to know. That's guidance to the general marketplace. Then there's the tips, seller, buyer, agent, over and over and over. So if you don't have that guidance mixed in, even way out there in the marketing, how do you expect people to refer you as a guide?
Yeah.
If you're always just making an ad, what's the latest ad? What's the hottest IDX? What? Like, that's a part of it, certainly. But what is the latest content platform upon which you gave your guidance into the neighborhoods that you want to be known as a guide? And you just don't see it that way if you're always doing it because you think it's hot. This guy's smashing it. That gal's killing it on social. What do you mean? You see them everywhere? How do you know? Yes, maybe branding eventually just beats everybody down. And because nobody else is competing with guidance, you just go to the person who's making the most noise.
Yeah.
Right? So that makes sense, Dino?
Very much so.
All right, so if you were to do something in 2019 to kick this sales funnel off, what's missing for you? What order from yesterday to today? What's missing? What's out of order for you?
Well, the messaging and consistency with the monthly stats is an important thing that I've completely dropped the ball on for way too long.
Mm-hmm.
I look at the ordering sequence of what we've got, what I've successfully gotten at least up and running. Again, like I said yesterday, it's not perfect, but it's there, and I can tweak it as we go along. So I've got a lot of that foundational stuff in place. What's kind of freaking me out a little bit is the amount of interest I'm getting from people. It's funny, I had a conversation with an agent this morning who's done between 7 and 10 deals a year for the last 3 years, and she's at that point where you talked about bouncing around earlier, and I was like, no, this guy people from doing that, because as a broker, I want people who bounce around companies. But she says, I got a question for you. What's one of the most important things you've helped me implement right away in order to become more successful, right? And the first thing I said to her was, I fail miserably at it, but how's your past client and your spirit of influence as well? And she goes, I haven't gotten more than a deal from any of them in 3 years. I said, and that's it. So I looked at it and said that as the guide, we've got to go and build that plan for her. And I'm looking at it the same way, saying, I listened for Laura, and I watched the evolution of her job over however long she's been with me. It seems like forever. Especially the way that you guys relate to each other now. Laura's become such a different person in the last year and a half.
For sure. No doubt.
As a person and as a business person, I think, at least in what I've seen in her. But I think that's it. It's just that continuation of the path and knowing that we're going to have to veer off and do things in a slightly different flavor to appeal to different people.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't veer too far from what we truly are, And it goes back to when we talked about social, You can't do on Facebook what you do on Instagram, what you do on LinkedIn, but the message has to be the same. It's just the language that it's done in is a different interpretation. So that's where I'm looking right now, is to say, let's focus on the strategy. Let's not get too crazy carried away with the bells and whistles on the implementation of things. The tactics are what they are.
Yeah.
Until they're proven wrong, they are right.
Yeah.
Because we will have to pivot again. The Proctor days and the 3 reports, they were the right thing at the right time for us.
Yeah, and you know what they were? They were harbinger of things they were harbinger of things to come. It was just from which standpoint were they being given?
The concept
they
were
were
given.
exactly. Well, what it was content, and tremendous content, and tremendous amounts of content. It actually became, to tell you the truth, it became great fodder for a great blog newsfeed, mixed in with market updates and other things, of course. But it became, great material for that, right? But again,
I look at them still and say it's great content for the blogs and the existing formats that we're using.
Well, it is, because you know why? It was intended to be evergreen. It was always intended to be evergreen. Those free reports were intended to be evergreen, and they still are. But what has changed, I think, or should change about their use is, what are you doing with them? And the question is, are you really giving them away? Or is your intent to write them, force opt-in to get them? Well, that died.
Yeah.
That died.
And that was a big challenge for me. When I had that paradigm shift that says, just put it there. Don't ask for anything. You could always put at the end, hey, if you need additional stuff like this, contact me and we'll see what we have for you.
Yeah.
But it was never permission-based to the point where it said, you want this, you got to give me something first.
Yeah. Right. And I think that's what we'll look at. Dean, let's take on the whole Realtor.com got caught flat-footed by Zillow, Trulia, etc., because they were 1995, 96. Dalton's, became a friend, if you're speaking at a Proctor event, that's how far it goes back. Like, where a technology company took this information and, quote unquote, opened Pandora's box, gave it away to the public for the first time ever, which once was proprietary. There's where the language shifted and nobody moved. I didn't get licensed till 1999. I didn't even recognize, like, I remember selling a house early on from Realtor.com. I'm like, Realtor on who? How? I was still using what I had as a, remember I started way back when as an investor. I was running off to get the booklet every other week. And shortly thereafter, people saying, Realtor.com, I came to the house, I double-ended my friend's house. I remember from Realtor.com, never struck me that even early adopters of tech, consumers, were using that to see properties. But the key was the proliferation of all these IDX sites, which were just simply transactional when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of those companies is built off of a transactional mindset alone. Because if they weren't, there'd be no forced opt-in.
Yeah.
If they're built to be gift giver guiding companies, then opt-in is optional.
Mm-hmm.
It's not forced. So you can see, even in the tech world, the difference is. Now, I think people will come to embrace because the consumer is going to go, look, there's too many places I can go and have this. Dean, Laura and I were talking about her husband's an architect. He uses one of my competitor sites to, look at homes. Because over the years, they were one of the locals that understood this and gave it away. And just people go there. It's easy to use. You can look up. You can set up.
Yesterday, I was laughing when I heard it.
Yeah, right. Well, but again, that's our own evolution. Look, we've been all great, you and I, and transactional. But that's a huge shift. Yeah, go ahead. What are you going to say?
No, just let me keep going there. That's a win.
Yeah. So that whole thing is an example of what you're saying, Laura. That even at the tech level, are we willing to go and do this? So the Griffin.co is all intended to say, I will not force you to do a thing. In fact, in every subject that I can on this platform, I'm going to give you something that I'm going to guess you either want or need. I'm going to try my best to serve all the three avatars, and including eventually add a mortgage component to it, that if you're curious about mortgage rates, and what that means for principal and interest. I'm not trying to sell your mortgage unless you want to. Then I'll hook you up with my wife and off we'll go, right? But the point is, if you just will believe that and you will generally do that as well, at least as everybody else, I just don't know how you can fail in building a database of prospects who will go further. Because the more traffic that you can get by just giving with expecting nothing in return, I believe the more quality prospects you will create. Now, of course, the content matters. If you're going to populate a website with nothing but distress sales, and that's what you're going to give away online, that's what you're going to attract. Mm-hmm. So I do think you have to understand that you have to make a decision in 2019. Who am I?
Yeah.
Who am I? What kind of a guide am I? It's okay. Look at Jeff Warrenberg as a great example in this group. He loves multifamily business. Mm-hmm. Eugene likes it too, but Hornberger lives for it. He loves it, right? So the whole concept is, as he looks at his web solutions, it's to be able to populate a website with just multifamily stuff. And so between he and Eugene, there's been a lot of discussion about that. So now he's firmly comfortable. He's excited. You get that out there. You give. And when they come, now they see you as the expert. Now they ask. Mm-hmm. They ask you, I'd like to take a step further. Could you call me? Or I'm on the phone. I want to know about this one. Yeah. Hey, great. Yeah, here's the information on that. Just out of curiosity, why were you calling? Were you thinking about buying one of these in the next, 6 to 12 months? Yes, I am. Awesome. Anybody helping you with that? No, not really. Listen, what I'd like to do is put you on a list. In that case, Jeff really does have off-market properties. Mm-hmm. So he has some off-market, but also, why don't I just put you into the MLS? So instead of having to go to the website to look, it comes in an email. And more importantly, I add those solds to come too. So you see what the money's buying. You can see the cap rate. You can see, right?
Yeah.
It's just so logical when you're a giver. And again, by being transparently out there on video, they get a chance to visit with you without visiting you. Mm-hmm. There's nothing more powerful than video to let them visit with you without visiting you and make a decision. I don't like the sweater he's wearing. Why? What's wrong? It's nice. Yeah, right? But that's the point.
Don't overthink it.
You don't have to.
No, I don't like that cheesy mustache you got going.
Oh, dude, wasn't that a winner? So my kid playing in all these hockey leagues, all these like you junior hockey league players, they're sporting the mustache. So I came out the other day with the stash on, and he fell in love with it. I said, dude, I can't do this during the holidays, but right afterwards, we'll be rocking the stash.
Oh God, help
You gotta
me.
go to the old landing McDonald's.
Oh yeah, that's a lot of work, the landing. All right, listen, we have any further commentary on this? Anybody want to ask a question about this? I think this is really important. It's year end. You got to get this stuff down. It's not going away. And Laura and I are here always trying to transparently share with you how critical this is to our book of business. I mean, I just can't think of anything more critical to share, and we want you to know about it. Fair?
Mhm.
Yeah, cool. All right, anything? Okay, quiet group today. Hey, listen, thank you for being you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for being my heroes, because you are. I'm humbled by the opportunity to guide day after day after day. But I want you to go and take a break from guidance. I want you to take a break from work. I want you to go out there and relax. I will see you sometime after the 2nd of January. And until then, there are no calls. And really, there's a certain period of time we have to rejuvenate the brain cells. Now's that time. Whatever you celebrate, I hope you celebrate the heck out of it and have a blast and a safe, happy holiday. And I'll see you on the other side of the new year. So thanks for being here, everybody. Talk soon.
Thanks, Danny.
Thanks, Danny.
Thank you. You bet.
Thanks, Danny.
You bet. Take care, all.